7 minutes past 8 here on the Super Morning Show on Joy 99.7 FM. My name is Daniel Daji. Like I said earlier, I'm here with Kweku Kwarteng, Deputy Minister of Finance. Mame Awinado is also here. And Malik Abbas Dabo, usual suspect here on the Super Morning Show. And Birthday Boy Ashite is here as well. Now, for those of you who may be asking, Mame is a young Ghanaian with expertise in international relations, third world politics, international law, international trade law, international commercial transactions law, and the law of the sea, and currently education manager and local representative of a not-for-profit organization called Coderina, Coda in Africa. All right, so good morning, lady and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Kwarteng, it's good to see you again.
It's good to be here again.
Yes, the last time we did this was the day after the budget.
I think so.
Yes. And it's time for us to have another conversation about our economy and peruse the numbers once more. I'll read this message because it captures to an extent some of the public sentiments that we've been hearing after the State of the Nation address. First of all, we've all applauded how that address ended and the firm commitment to security. As a member of parliament yourself, we would be taking a few comments on what goes on in Obuasi West when elections are going on. But you're also Deputy Minister of Finance. So listen to Efo Kofi in Tema. He says, "Good morning, Daniel and friends. My biggest disappointment yesterday was the president's failure to assure we, the citizens, of plans to rearrest the galloping national currency, the cedi. The cedi is almost hitting 5 cedis, 50 pesos to the US dollar. And since our economy is heavily dependent on imports, the situation is hurting the ordinary Ghanaian. And yet the president was mute on this state of affairs. Maybe he's leaving his vice president to deal with it." Mr. Kwarteng is here to deal with it himself. So what's happening with the cedi?
Well, good morning to listeners. First, some broad comments. I think yesterday the presentation was very good. We like just the general humor and presentation, and we thank the president for that. But I should also commend members of parliament generally. Yesterday, I think we comported ourselves quite well, particularly the minority, because traditionally we have had the MPs on the opposing sides to the president, boo and say all kinds of things to distract the president as they deliver the addresses. Yesterday, we did not see that from the minority. Mm-hmm. I think it is good. I hope for those of us who are opposed to this kind of conduct in Parliament, I hope this marks the beginning of a new culture for us as the people's representatives, and that this attitude would go beyond this Parliament. Good one, members of Parliament. The cedi. Yesterday, the president did address the cedi. You know, addressing the cedi will not happen because you said we will address the cedi, we will do this. The fundamental factors that hurt the cedi and causes what we are seeing now. And it is not the first time. It's happened many times in the past under different administrations. Those factors are in your general economic management. If you get the industrial environment right, if you export more, if you would pursue economic management strategies that will make you less dependent on other people's hard work elsewhere, then your cedi will stabilize. So the president may not have said, yes, I would deal with the cedi. Let's not forget immediately, the cedi is owned by the central bank, the Bank of Ghana. And I am confident that they're looking at what is happening and they would, in the short term, do what is right. And when I say what is right, there ought to be a balance between how they even manage their reserves for supporting the cedi. They have quite some reserves. But it's strategic. You don't just release dollars to arrest the cedi without first appreciating what is causing. So I think the central bank, the Bank of Ghana, is attentive, and in the short term, they will do what they are required to do. But for us fiscal managers, and when I say fiscal managers, I mean those of us
at the Ministry of Finance.
Yes, at the Ministry of Finance and government generally. Our responsibility is to deal more with the long-run issues and the foundations of any currency, namely your ability to produce more of what other people outside Ghana need, so that in selling it to them, you get foreign exchange that strengthens your own currency. And as the discussion progresses, you would see the interventions in the president's address that gives comfort that indeed efforts are underway to are being pursued. Efforts are being pursued to ensure that we get our export right. And for the first time in more than a decade, the trade balance was a surplus. And these are indications that if we move along this path, we would have a stronger cedi in the long run.
Okay. You mentioned that there have been problems that have bedeviled the Ghana cedi for years, and we can't ignore them. However, the depreciation we have seen in the past few weeks, if not months, is also quite strange. Because even though we can argue that the annual rate of depreciation is about 4%, we have seen that in the past few weeks, the cedi has dropped by almost about 30 pesos. And so, yes, we have fundamental problems with the cedi, but we have peculiar issues to now. Do we have a handle on what is causing it now?
To start with, I think many people are listening to you and disagreeing with you when you say the sharp drop in the cedi in recent weeks is strange. It is not. We have seen this many times in the past, when over a short period you see the sharp drop, and then the Bank of Ghana steps in either by the administration of their reserves or by something. It stabilizes for a period and we run the commentaries and we go on. The cedi then falls gradually until we have the next bout of sharp drop. So that is not, let's not say for at all that
it's not the first time it has happened.
No, it's not strange at all. It's really, that is what
you think it's not strange?
It is not strange. That is what has defined us. And there are many people, there are many people listening to us who
let's not stay on that point. The fundamental question.
When we see or accept that occasionally we have this, and at some point, I think in 2012, when this happened, you remember the Bank of Ghana came out with some measures about you not being able to travel without being able to secure forex from any bank without showing that, and came out with some measures which actually could not stand, if you recall. So it's just to make the point that our currency has been characterized by this instability because fundamentally we consume a lot more of what other people produce in their country. It reflects our economy. It reflects who we are. We have a taste for what other people produce more than other people have a taste for what we produce. And the responsibility is on us as a country to deal with those fundamentals. In direct response to your question, the short run drop in the cedi, which makes all of us uncomfortable, it's something, as I indicated, the Bank of Ghana owns. In the short run, they would have to find various strategies to deal with it. It is not, we have quite some reserves. The Bank of Ghana, I'm sure, could have released reserves, forex into the market as a way of dealing with this. But those are not decisions you just make because the cedi is falling. You need to understand why this is happening. You need to have some not long run, but you need to look a bit far into the future.
So do we understand why this is happening now?
I think we do. If not for anything at all, we know that there's quite a heavy presence of foreign investors in our economy. Whenever we go out to tell investors that come to Ghana and invest, it is good when they come because they bring the forex. They may invest in financial instruments, that is to say they would invest in bonds, and because the bonds are cedi denominated, what they do is that they come they change the money, and that brings forex.
Mm-hmm.
Then they collect cedis, and then they do their investments. So they buy bonds. When you have this presence of foreigners in your economy, which you yourself are going out there to ask for, what it also means is that at some point they would disinvest, looking at what the future looks like. And don't forget, we are just exiting the IMF.
Mm-hmm.
And there may all be suggestions to investors that, look, let me hold back a bit and see what is happening. I'm not saying this for sure because you need to do a more detailed analysis of what is happening.
Exactly, because I would have loved to know how many people and how much is being lost now.
That is owned by the Bank of Ghana.
Okay.
And I'm careful not to go too deep into what they do. They understand it better. But what I'm saying is that when you have this situation, an attempt by investors to just look at how the future would go, not because the government has done anything wrong. In fact, if anything at all, listening to Ghanaians, exiting the IMF, for instance, is good. But if I'm an investor, I'm not necessarily thinking about you and your national pride and how you're exiting the IMF. I'm thinking, would these guys be able to hold themselves without the IMF? And I may adopt a setting, let me hold back my investments and see how the future goes. This may all be factors, but the conclusion ought to be that the Bank of Ghana, because they are on top of this, I'm sure, would intervene in the way they see fit. But on our side as government, the executive, we are focusing on building our own capacity to produce more and export more so we can substitute some of those things we are always in a hurry to import from outside, whilst government also takes steps to ensure that we spend as little forex as possible.
Before I bring Mami into the conversation, let me go straight to the phone lines and speak with Mr. Fifi Kwete, Member of Parliament for Ketu South, member of the Finance Committee, ranking member for Trade and Industry Committee. Mr. Kwete, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, good morning to you, and good morning to all your listeners as well, and to my brother Kwaku Paton.
The last time we were having this conversation was during the City Forum at the City Center. I remember very well the Joy Business City Forum. And you were talking about how the politics with the city is becoming too much and that there are fundamentals in the economy that we need to address. Do you still stand by that position?
Yeah, thank you very much. And effectively, that again is what it is I was going to talk about as I listened to my brother Kwaku Paton do all the Palogo dance and every effort to try to literally come to terms with what is a clear reality. And the more I listen to him, the more I remember exactly the words of then Vice Candidate and now Vice President Dr. Bawumia. When you do propaganda with the economy, the foreign exchange, or the city depreciation would expose you. It appears that exactly is what is happening now. They are basically being exposed. Now, if you recall that less than 3 months into their coming into office in 2017, they declared triumphantly that they had been able to arrest the depreciation of the currency. They've been able to padlock it. And then now you are struggling to explain to the country exactly how it is that the very same thing that you claim you have achieved has now completely departed from you. And in the midst of all you claim you have achieved, as I was in terms of economic management, you simply are unable to provide the stability needed for the currency. I think that this basically helps us all to know that oftentimes the triumphal declaration is done too early and is done just in the name of politics, whereas the real, what you call a structure of the economy, nothing at all has been done about it. That's the first point I make. The second one I make also is this, that it is actually even difficult to appreciate how it is that a government comes into office, and the very first thing the government does is to want to create conditions for more importation. Okay, by reducing import levies, okay, indirectly trying to encourage more importation into the country, because really that's what that policy did. And then you turn around now and complaining about the structure of the economy. I mean, what were you actually expecting when you came and one of the first things you wanted to do was to reduce import levels in order to create more opportunity for import to come into the country? Whereas you know that traditionally we've had what you call a balance of having too little export compared to import. And then because you came really on a popular wave, typically wanting to go with what I call the politics or the populist politics. You came reducing especially import levels, and now you are turning around and then complaining about the structure of the economy. That's the second one.
On your second point, Mr. Kwete, before you go to your third point, some would say that if we don't have the substitute, the local substitutes, to replace those commodities whose levies we are reducing, there's no point in keeping the levies high to increase the cost to the Ghanaian, because for spare parts, for instance, we don't produce them locally. And starting a spare parts industry is not something that you can do within the period that the spare parts levy was reduced.
Yeah, but I'm saying that if that's what you decide to do, then don't come complaining about creating conditions for a more accelerated erosion of the currency.
My question is that
you do very low. No. I mean, if you take that's a policy option you decide to have. If you decide to take that option, then be ready to face the consequences. And the consequences is that you are further going to create an erosion in your currency, because it's more and more imports have to come into the country. And don't forget, it's not just import. I mean, in terms of spare parts, we are also talking about a country where I think if you check the statistics at BOG, you will realize, for example, that rice importation into this country at the close of 2016, I don't think was in excess of 430, maximum maybe $500 million. If you check the same statistics today, you'll be realizing that what we are importing to this country in rice, for example, it has gone over $1 billion. I mean, so you could see clear deceleration in many of the real fundamentals, and I'm saying, clear problem in terms of the real structure of the economy. That has become even worse.
You had a third point you wanted to make.
Yeah, the third point I was going to make really had to do with I think you caused me to lose a little.
Pardon me. So I'll give you a few minutes. I'll give you a few minutes to regroup, and I'll bring in Mami Awenado, who is with us in the studio. Mami, so we have government on one side saying that investor behavior is part of what is happening, and we have the minority on the other side telling us that we did not see enough policies to discourage imports in the first place, and that's why this is always going to happen. From where you sit, you've done a lot of international trade, you've done a lot of international commerce. What are your views on this?
So I just want to talk first of all, just say three things. The first thing I wanted to talk about in general was just looking at the cedi from a different standpoint. Let's just take it back to history in terms of currencies and when all the states, like a majority of global states decided to peg their currencies to the dollar. At the time, the dollar was pegged to the gold. And so what was backing the dollar was gold. Because basically, if you think about it, what is money? It's paper. So then what is the value of the money? Comes from when it's attached to something of value, and that is gold. And gold was always constant. But then in the early 1970s, Nixon decides that, hey, listen, we're going to unpeg, after the countries had pegged, based on confidence, their money to the dollar, because the dollar was pegged to the gold, decides to unpeg the dollar from the gold. And so now the dollar stands on its own. And now what happens with currencies is that currencies are now backed by what? The strength of the economy. But look at the Ghanaian context. Whatever we are discussing, I think that even if right now it's peculiar, we've seen this with different administrations. It's been a constant thing of the dollar, the Ghana cedi not being very stable. And where is that from, if you think about it? Basically, if the only way for the cedi to do well is for you to pump in dollars into the system, then it shows you that even as a currency, we are not independent. Now look at the Chinese yen. The Americans accusing China of manipulating their currency because they've devalued the yen. It should even be much higher at par with the dollar, but they've devalued it. Why? Because countries control currency, but in the African context, we don't. Currency is controlled by our currency is controlled by the US dollar, by another states. And if you think about it, you say, if your economy is strong, it will do well. But think about currency and how popularity, value, recognition, how many people spend it. What's the Ghanaian population? How many people use the cedi? So how strong can it be? Because the more people use your currency, the more powerful it is, or the more recognition it also has. But how many people use the Ghana cedi? Think about, nobody ever looks at that. Let's just trace things back to history, or look at how the cedi on its own stands. How much power does Ghana as a state have over its currency if your currency is determined by your economy, and your economy is strongly economy that relies on borrowing?
Okay, you raised what Mr. Kwarteng would say, or Mr. Kwete would agree with, the most fundamental point of all. But we have a behavior in the country that sort of caters for some of these issues.
Yes.
Number one is our appetite for foreign direct investments. That brings in forex.
Yes.
Number two is our export behavior.
Yes.
You see, that is supposed to bring in forex. Last time we were speaking to Ken Thompson, who said his advice for the average business is do something that you'll be paid in dollars, so that you won't be worried by this.
Yes.
So shouldn't we be doing enough of that, so that even if there's only 30 million people spending the city,
Yes.
people are interested in the economy?
Definitely. I mean, I would even say, looking at both of the arguments and thinking, okay, how can we basically, because I think that when you go back to do something, you can be paid in dollars. It takes you back to the same notion that at the end of the day, it has to be about the dollar. What about China and how China has strengthened itself? I think that the whole point of the CFTA, the Continental Free Trade Area, was to help African states begin to trade within each other and then encourage local production of goods. Now, you would say that he spoke about the fact that the importation levies. I know that in 2012, we had signed an agreement called the EPAs, the Interim Agreement.
Yes, we initialed it.
You initialed it, exactly. Yeah. And to allow the free flow of goods from Europe, 80%, to open our markets, 80%. And so when these goods come in, they come at no cost, and then they are much cheaper than the locally produced goods. But I also know that some of the IMF conditions that we have signed put restrictions on government in terms of even subsidizing farmers and even investing in the local industries. Because if we had the leeway to even determine how we want to spend our money as a state, maybe the finance minister could speak on that. We don't have the leeway to determine how we want to spend our monies. We are conditioned by the IMF based on the loans we've signed from 1994. In 1994, they gave you conditions that, based on the loans you're giving you can't really invest much in education. You can't subsidize your farmers. Some of the investments that you probably want to do, even your local industries, to empower them, you can't. Because if the local industries are empowered, we will no longer have to seek for imports outside.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
Look, I really like the way this thing is going right now. Okay. But Mr. Kwarteng, you disagree on what Mami was talking about, Mami Awinado was talking about, when she said the IMF conditionalities. Are our hands not tied when we are signing some of these agreements? For instance, we went for, what's it called, policy credibility with the IMF. If the IMF believes our policies are not credible, we won't do it.
Well, to begin with, the IMF doesn't force itself on anybody. You sit down, you manage your economy, you come to a point, and you say, where I have reached, I need policy credibility. So I'm going to the IMF so that when they are around, people will believe that I'm doing the right things. And then they come around, you're not in a position to turn around and complain that after inviting you into my house, what you're asking me to do is hurting me. In any case, you can always tell them I won't do it. You see, the IMF program, extended credit facility that the previous administration subscribed to, is something this administration, are opposed to, which is why we are exiting.
But you extended it by a year when you came to power.
Because if we hadn't, the effect on the economy would have been worse than we're seeing now. So you needed to, that you have gone into it for 2 years, you needed to take your time to put your fundamentals right so that you can live without bruises. Because if you are living the IMF program, and the IMF said that, look, the economy is in a worse state than it was when we came in, what you would see in the market, your currency, you just can't take it. So even though you're opposed to something, you take your time to exit, which is why we have taken our time. The fundamentals are better now, as the president indicated yesterday, and therefore we are able to exit safely. But the broad point I'm making is that the remedy is not to blame the IMF. The remedy is to so manage our economy that we don't need an IMF. That's for me is a remedy. And some of the things the IMF would ask us to do once they come around are the things that we ought to do as responsible people. Spend within your means. The IMF says spend within your means. If you want to really have these expenditures, then indeed you need to raise the money for it first. If you can't raise the money, don't spend. Whether you're spending it on on
Farm
subsidies, or you are. The fact of life is that you should only spend money that you really have. But
what are our priorities? What are our priorities, Mr.
The
Kwati?
priorities of this government is value addition to our local raw material. The one district, one factory we have been talking about is our key priority, because that's what will create the jobs. That is what would arrest the kind of instability we have seen in the city historically. But to do that, you need to create a certain environment. And if I can take this opportunity to respond to the point Honorable Fifi Kwete raised about imports, the import levies. When we came, the reduction on the customs front in terms of the taxes was for reduction on raw material and machinery. Look at all we were strategic. We didn't just get up to do things that would make people happy. We reduced customs duties and taxes on those things that we considered were needed in our quest to improve industrialization and be able to export more. So that point really should be off. I think that in spite of that, for the first time in more than a decade, we had a surplus, a trade surplus. That is to say, if you look at our exports and our imports, because it's more than that, the account is much bigger than that. But if you look at our exports and our imports, there was a surplus in 2018. And of course, I have further, I wish there are still outstanding matters, because some of those exports do not necessarily come here. But that in the past, we were registering these trade deficits, showing that even if our exports were not bringing the proceeds here, that still on the face of the books, we were still doing much worse than we ought to be doing. So the simple point I'm making is that those import levies have not hurt our economy, that the evidence is not clear. The CD, in my opinion, is suffering the traditional instability, because fundamentally we do not export enough. And what we ought to all be examining is government strategies to improve industrialization and to be able to export more, to do import substitution. If we can focus the discussions on that and get that right, the CD would find its proper level.
Two questions. Number one, the example that I gave, even for reduction in import levies, was on spare parts. Spare parts is not does not come in when we are talking about import substitution, raw materials, and machinery.
Well, that is true. But what do spare parts do? As you rightly indicated, these things are not they are not manufactured in Ghana right now. If you want industrialization, you are thinking about the transport industry as well. And so it was strategic. Again, it was linked to the broad strategy that whatever we do must ultimately create an environment within which people will be comfortable investing in production and manufacturing and exporting more.
Since we are talking about, and my second question is about this conversation. That's why yesterday, for instance, on Newsnight, we spoke with Alan Tremantin about the city, because he's Minister for Trade and Industry.
Sure.
And the industrialization drive, the 10-point plan that we had, we've been asking questions about it for 2 years. And we are supposed to have 45 factories, according to Mr. Tremantin. We are supposed to have 45 factories producing. So, Mr. Kwating, let me ask you, are you able to tell us the net effect of the reduction, for instance, in spare parts taxes and the starting of these 45 factories on our exports and in so doing on our CD? Are you able to tell us that now?
We are still in early days yet. Look, industrialization is not something you contemplate doing even in 2 years and say 2 months. I have always thought of the one district, one factory, not as some a time-bound or some one-off policy that it ought to be a culture. We ought to say to ourselves that wherever we have raw material, that we want to turn this into more processed products that we can export. So you start by, one, creating the macroeconomic stability, because if your macroeconomy is unstable, if inflation is rising, if interest rates are high, that industrialization is not going to happen. So the environment first and foremost must be created, and we have been looking to do that. For a government that had made many commitments to the people in an election, we have sought to deliver on these commitments, and
that's the point I want you to address now.
I'm making a basic point here,
which is
that whilst we are seeking to deliver on our manifesto commitments, the National Identification Scheme, the Planting for Food and Jobs, the free SHS, the support for teacher trainees, and all those social interventions, whilst we do that, we have been under pressure to also maintain a certain macroeconomic stability within which our industrialization and business agenda can succeed. And I think if you look at the indicators, we are doing quite well. But that was
never... when you call it, when you say we have been under pressure, these are commitments you made yourselves. So it's not pressure. It's a target you set for yourself.
Maybe.
Which is why when you mention, if I can just slip this, when you mention that you do not see one district, one factory as a time-bound commitment, it could be unfair because you held yourself to the timelines when you came to power. We had announcements made of seeing 50 factories by a certain time. We've had separate deadlines being given by government itself. We are simply holding you to your word.
Well, I'm not debating that. I mean, people.
The statements you made seems to depart from that line of thinking, which is why I wanted to point it out.
Yeah, I know, because we are all very politically sensitive, so we see these things. But really, the point I'm making is okay if anybody wants to hold this government to one district, one factory within a certain time frame. That's okay. But the point I'm making is that industrialization has to be a culture. It cannot. It's not a one-off thing you do and say, okay, so one district, one factory, say in 4 years. So we have achieved it. So what? We go and sleep. We have to make it a culture. That's the basic point I'm making. I'm not suggesting in any way. Okay. I'm not commenting on our manifesto.
I'm glad you made that clarification. Allow me to bring in Mr. Kwete on this conversation, on this leg of the conversation a bit. So, Mr. Kwete, you yourself have been Deputy Finance Minister. You have seen, this balance we have to do between, the current system as it is and putting basics in place for, more fundamental changes in our economy. It's a difficult position to be in, no?
Yeah, it is a difficult position, especially when it is you make your own situation worse by mounting political platform and make promises that nobody put a gun on you to make. For example, make promises that within 18 months of your coming into office, you are actually going to bring about a complete transformation of our country. All right? Make commitment to the fact that you are going to put in every district in this country, new factories, as opposed to what is happening now, which is really a turnaround. When they saw that the thing was completely unrealizable, then they started, as it were, dancing around and shifting the goalposts and now claiming that they actually meant if there are even existing one, they will try to support them. This is what you do when you compound your own problem.
Mr. Kwete, to be fair, I did not read in the manifesto the NPP using the specific words will put new factories in every district.
You haven't read well, because actually
in the manifesto it says new.
I've been in your own studio, and in your studio, I think hosted by Evans Mensah, and this issue was discussed. Appropriately.
I'm referring specifically to the manifesto.
You see, don't misunderstand it. It's not simply manifesto. That's the only thing that you depend on. You depend on clear statements that have been made also by the key, what you call leaders of the NPP. I'm talking the candidate, the vice candidate. Clear statement is made. Okay. And Ghana is under no illusion that throughout their campaign, it was clear that they said that in every district in Ghana, they will establish new factories. That's why the word came one district, one factory. And Ghana is not under any illusion at all about that. So if they've reached a point where they say that they are beating more than they can chew and they want to do a turnaround, let them be humble enough and do a massive turnaround and say, listen, that's what we thought. We have now seen better. We are now doing it. And not try to be smart with Ghana, pretend that this is really what we meant from the beginning. That is important. Now, I'm saying that if you compound that issue, then the expectations get higher. And when the expectations get higher, you are unable to deliver. You have to face up to that consequence. Now, Now, I mentioned earlier about concern relating to, for example, Enjoy FM. You can actually do your own check. Check, for example, how much it is we used to import rice, for example, into this country, what it is now, how much it is in terms of oil importation, coconut oil and so on, how much it is now, and so on. And check various things that used to actually be past and now. You realize it has become far more. So that should tell you that in the midst of all the talk about successful policies and so on, the real issues on the ground are totally different. And it's important for us to start departing from what I call the plenty spin and the plenty talk and tackle the root causes of the problem. You talk, for example, about what's happening to industry or what's happening to even the business community. It's not as good as our friends in Ghana are trying to make it look. Many businesses are really, really, really suffering. Many of them are in a situation where they really have to even lay off workers. That's increasing the levels of hardship. That creates difficulty. You promised industry, for example, you were going to reduce corporate income tax from 25% to 20% when you come to power. We are now in your third year. You still have been unable to do anything about it. That obviously is not in keeping what it is you promised the people.
Okay.
And nobody forced you to make those promises. And then again, a lot of what happened initially with the currency had to do with the fact that initially portfolio investors were very heavy. Based on what was happening in different parts of the world, the situation clearly has turned. And this actually should let you know that some of the things that we boast about are not things that even we control. So therefore, if you are in politics, you don't want to be boasting about things that clearly are not within your control. But they were basking in all that glory and creating impression as if they were some what you call wizards in economic management. Now the situation has turned around. Portfolio investors clearly are moving into other places. Because they are not seeing their way clear. And now you are talking about the fact that it is because you are.
But is that not because, Mr. Kwete, is that not because from administration to administration, we have not done enough, like Mame said earlier, to make our currency independent?
You know what? Your currency is a factor of economic activity. Okay, and bottom line, it is that if you produce more and export more, you have far more foreign currency, and therefore you can stabilize your own currency. If you have to import, it's as basic as that. So it's not about having independent currency. I don't know exactly the whole explanation about having independent currency because China, for example, will have strength of currency. The reason because they export a lot. And if they export far more than they import, naturally their currency will be stronger.
Okay.
So in the case of China, they have too strong a currency and actually wish they can actually reduce their strength so that they'll be able to export more. So it's as basic as that. That's why we all must appreciate that transforming the structure of an economy is a long-term undertaking.
Give us a moment, Mr. Kwete.
And not to create false impression. And then later on, now you are in difficulty. And talking about the whole...
Mr. Kwete, I wish I could allow you to continue, but we are on a very tight ship now. Thanks for your patience. Let me come to Mami Awenado for her point on this. And I wanted to come in at this point because he addresses your arguments directly. Is it as simplistic as more exports?
I think not. I think that one thing I realized with both administration, with the MPP, NDC governments, that they haven't really been honest with Ghanaians about the issue on the ground. I remember when I even mentioned the IMF situation, there was a statement like, well, why do you keep, nobody, IMF doesn't just come, we go to them. So why do you keep going back? Why do you keep going to dance with, everybody knows that the IMF was constructed to give African state loans to pay off to pay back loans they had taken from other Western states. But talking about the currency, look at a country like South Africa, for example. They export more than Ghana does. But their currency, the rand, has faced a lot of issues over the years. It's not about export. If you're correlating currency and export, it's about the strength of the government recognition. Ghana, we have a small market. The population size. So even if we're exporting a lot, what we need to understand is that it goes beyond that. It goes to, look at China, for example, their currency should be at par with the dollar, considering the extent to which they are exporting. Even the U.S. owes China trillions of dollars. But China has devalued their own currency because the power is in the state. He spoke about, let's say, for example, foreign investors that come in. So when they come in, when they're leaving, They cash out. They cash out on what? CDs or dollars?
Dollars.
In dollars, right? When they cash out a lot, huge sums of money. How much MTN, I don't remember the number, but just like we can just go check how much MTN cashed out in December when they were at the end of the year. You think of all the multinational companies that come here, when they cash out their money, they pump in the dollars. Yes, they get CDs, but when they're going, they take their dollars back. When the dollars leave, what happens to the CD? Then at the end of the day, you need to go get more foreign investors to bring in more dollars. Then when they are cashing out, what do? They cash out in their money. So then we keep feeling this, the fluctuation going on. And it's because our currency is not independent. And we don't have that independence because, first of all, we are a small population, small market. That is why do you think ECOWAS was pushing for a one currency? First of all, because you have a bigger market. More people are using the currency. Gives it more power. Because at the end of the day, currency goes with value. Value has to do with recognition. You see what I'm trying to say? Even if you think about, I was thinking about just even exports, like going back to the export correlation thing, I feel like it doesn't make any sense. There are a lot of countries that export. Nigeria has a bigger market than we do. Their manufacturing sector, one of the reasons why they were slowing down to even initial the whole CFTA was because they're trying to protect their manufacturing sector. Because Ghana, we don't manufacture much, but they do, even in terms of like cars and all of that. But even with that, with their big market, with Kenya's big market, with South Africa's big market, their currencies are still facing the same issues we are facing.
So what are the real solutions?
The real solution, that is why we're trying to push for integration. What is integration? At the end of the day, it's about trying to have a common market, common currency. Why did the euro unite? Europe unite, right? The pound is the strongest currency in Europe, right? Mm-hmm. But why was the whole point of the EU? Is to be able to come together, have one market, have one currency. Because you're speaking in one voice. In the African context, look at small states like Ghana.
30 million people.
Yes, what can you do?
Gambia has, I think, 1.5 million people.
Yes, imagine. This is even the last point I would say, in terms of even exports. Who determines the price of your goods on the international market? African states don't have any say in the WTO. You don't contribute anything to jurisprudence. Some of the cases that you've raised about your cotton prices, your cocoa. Who determines the price of cocoa? When you go to WTO, even Ghana, with all the cocoa you're producing, you don't even have a voice in the WTO. Why? Because the states that give you money tell you the price of your goods.
But you see...
And you're dancing to that tune, and then you still come back and you tell us it's an NDC MPP problem. It's a bigger problem, and I think that if we acknowledge it... So we need to come together. That is why we're trying to push for the CFTA.
Okay, so it's 10 minutes to the top of the hour.
Yeah.
Like I said... I'll make a personal confession.
Yes.
Myself and a number of listeners texting me now are really loving the way Mami is speaking. If it says your guest is spot on about the Forex hike. Notice how the seemingly stable CD against the dollar started inching up following a certain company's IPO. Okay. When I come back, I'll ask Mr. Kwarteng what happened with the president's plan. You know, after the president went for the UN General Assembly, we had a big announcement about how we're going to form a cocoa bloc with Cote d'Ivoire because we export 60% of Ghana's cocoa, but the GDP of Nestle is about 10 or 100 times the GDPs of these two countries put together. It's 10 minutes to the top of the hour. We'll wrap up with Mr. Kwete and Mr. Fifi Kwete on the phone lines, Mr. Kweku Kwarteng in studio, and Mami Awinado in studio. When we come back, stay with us.
At Afrodan, we believe that many of the problems people have with their health is as a result of the way they sit. In other words, your chair can kill you. Here's Dr. Marcus Mann of the Chiropractic and Wellness Center.
What you have to remember is that the spine is the lifeline to your body, and posture is the window to that spine. Now, posture is affected by your daily activities and habits like sitting. That's why at the Chiropractic and Wellness Centers, we recommend what I believe to be the best chairs available for preventing not only subluxations, but also other health problems that you may not be aware of. And that's Rabami and Mobilex chairs. Unfortunately, on a daily basis, I have to correct the effects of this poor sitting habit in our businessmen and businesswomen. Always remember, optimal spine equals optimum health.
So, for the sake of your health, buy Rabami or Mobilex chairs from Afrodan. We're on the first floor of the Swansea Shopping Arcade. Telephone 663-085.
I am Dr. Acacia. Acacia gives your workers the best customer service and treatment options when the need arises, keeping them healthier and more productive for your business. Acacia Health Insurance. We place value on those you value.
Since inception, Almost 100% of Ashesi University students have found jobs, started businesses, or gone on to graduate school within 6 months of graduation. From Accra to Nairobi, London to New York, Ashesi graduates are noticed and they are leading successful careers. If you dream of a rewarding life and career, an Ashesi education prepares you for just that. Learn more about applying to Ashesi at www.ashesi.edu.gh. Remember, admission is ongoing.
If you buy gold, you will save money. Because gold lasts longer. If you paint your house gold, it will shine brighter. Because gold withstands all the elements. And gold protects you from microbial growth. And it's washable. And contrary to common belief, gold comes in every color your heart desires. So, invest in gold premium acrylic paints the next time you want to paint your house. Highly washable, long-lasting, with a wide range of products from acrylic paints to enamels, primers, stuccos, and more, all engineered to the highest international standards. Protect your home. Invest in gold.
Baby, you know that I miss you.
Hello?
Hey, my guy. Hey, you the everyday time. See the way make like I do on every wrong thing.
Charlie, that be the power of the sound tower. Charlie, hold on. I get call from my other phone top. Hello? Issy, you give me 10 minutes and I'm dressing up.
Liar. Dressing up and talking.
But which are you from and you've not heard of airports?
Now that's a gifted man. Gifted by NASCO in the NASCO Mega Gifts promotion. When you buy the NASCO Aleo and Aleo Plus mobile phone, you get a free sound tower, airport headset, and free 6-month subscription on Kwese iFlix. There's more. Buy a NASCO Snap Pro, Power Plus, and Power Plus Pro, and get another phone, airport, and selfie stick free. All this and many more in the NASCO Mega Gifts promotion. Visit all Electroland showrooms and any authorized reseller while stocks last. NASCO. Bring home happiness. Terms and conditions apply.
Bring home happiness. Fairly
Oh. And you know, my claim is not covered by the insurance policy I arranged.
Parkwesi, I've always advised you to let J&G Insurance Brokers, the insurance professional, handle your insurance to avoid gaps. At J&G, we analyze your insurance needs, we arrange cover with the best insurer with a track record of prompt claims payment, and above all, we facilitate and negotiate your claims. Call Dr. Gideon Amenyedo, the CEO, on 0244 333335 or 0504 333335. You can also email him, Gideon, at jinginsurancebrokers.com or visit our website, jinginsurancebrokers.com.
Thank you very much, Egenam. I'm calling Doctor right away.
At J&J Insurance Brokers, negotiating a great insurance deal is our business.
Ever since I started drinking Glen tea, anytime water starts boiling in my kettle, Mansa, my neighbor, just shows up.
Neighbor, as soon as I heard your kettle, I knew the time was right for me to come and enjoy your tea.
You know how to walk, Papa, as if I knew.
Of course, you know I know how to walk. 4 cups, right?
4 cups? It's not just you and me.
Oh, no, 2 cups for me now. And don't forget Auntie Abebre, so as soon as she hears the sound of your kettle, she
there she comes.
What did I tell you?
Introducing new Glen tea with its fresh flavor that brings people together. Now available in your neighborhood store. This advert has been vetted and approved by the Food and Drugs Authority.
Join renowned entrepreneur and author T.D. Jakes for a masterclass intensive next-level leadership summit.
The businesses that are most successful are businesses that are built around solving other people's needs. Whose problem does your business fix?
With award-winning international journalist Aisha Sasay, founder of We Can Lead.
Every girl across the world has enormous potential, and if they unlock that potential, can achieve tremendous things.
Your hosts, Archbishop Nicholas and Rosa Whittaker Duncan Williams. Saturday, March 16th, 2019, from 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Register now. Visit abkls.com. Corporate sponsorship is available. Contact info@abkls.com.
This is what you've been waiting for. It's an experience you cannot miss. Be there.
coffee in your cup, and joy on the set, the Super Morning Show is always the best bet on Joy 99.7 FM.
Africa must wake up, the sleeping sons of Jacob, for what tomorrow may bring. May a better day come. It's the day we work.
Show Enjoy 99.7 FM. My name is Daniel Dazi, in studio with Kweku Kwarteng, Deputy Minister for Finance.
For some Western critics,
there's also Mame Awinado.
But Africa's the origin of all the world's religions. We praise bridges that carried us over the battlefronts of Sudanic so.
Mame's profile mentions international like 5 times. International relations, third world politics, international law, international trade law, international commerce law, and the law of the sea, which is also international. But she's education manager and local representative for a not-for-profit organization called Coda in Africa. We'll take the Joy Business Minute in a minute. But we've been talking about the Ghana cedi and what is really wrong. Mame seems to believe that it's bigger than what the NDC and the MPP say all the time, which Mr. Fifi Kweti of the NDC agrees with to an extent. And Mr. Kwarteng acknowledges to an extent that our cedi has been slipping over the years. It's not just one administration.
Final chapter.
Bottom line, when you and I are buying goods, we are seeing higher prices because the Ghana cedi is not doing well. What are the real solutions? What should we be pushing for as a people? We should be empowered with knowledge so that we know exactly what to demand so we can have those permanent solutions. What we've done today is that we've created a platform where we can discuss those real solutions so that when you call your member of parliament or the next time you see someone in power, you can speak the truth. We're having more of that conversation today on the show, but your text messages, which I'm going to go through in a moment, are brought to you by Afrodan. Your back must last you a lifetime. In Glyco Travel Insurance Policy, we cushion you for life. Afrodan is offering you today the most comfortable chair in the world, period. The Nightingale Extreme Comfort Chair. It has over 10 thoughtfully engineered features, especially customized for your health and comfort. So working has never had it this good. Go to Afrodan on the first floor of the Swansea Shopping Arcade and feel the share. You will be amazed. I'm going to take the Joy Business Minute now. We'll be back with more.
Welcome to the Joy Business Minute. Hello.
It's Karen and Daryl.
And if you're a holder of a 0 to 8 number, we have news for you.
The National Communication Authority, NCA, has revoked the license of mobile operator Kasapa Telecoms. According to the NCA, the decision was taken since March 15, 2018.
The Public Utilities Regulatory Commission is likely to announce new tariffs next week. The new owners of ECG Power Distribution Company would formally take over next Wednesday.
The Tourism Ministry says it is currently working with various players in the hospitality space to stop pricing services in dollars. The practice is said to be one of the causes of the current pressure on the cedi.
Well, on the currency market, the cedi is now selling at 5 cedis 49 pesos to a dollar, the British pound going for 6 cedis 56 pesos, and the euro is selling at 5 cedis 57 pesos.
Hope we see the end of the cedi's fall soon.
Fingers crossed. Goodbye.
Africa must wake up, the sleeping sons of Jacob, for what tomorrow may bring. May a better day.
Science, art is your career.
No interest charge. We deliver free. within Accra, Tema, and surrounding towns. Call us on 0302-764-101 or 762-307 or visit kingdomgh.com. Kingdom Books and Stationery Limited, your number one-stop shop for all office essentials, stationery and furniture.
Sleeping sons of Jacob for what?
Now simply open a Barclays Ultimate account, maintain a balance of at least 500 Ghana cedis, swipe to make payments with your Barclays card as often as you can, and you can win an all-expenses-paid trip to the UK to watch your favorite teams go head-to-head live. You could also win a stadium experience in our local Superfan penthouse and take away exciting home items and your favorite team souvenirs. Don't miss out on your chance to experience football the way it was meant to be experienced, live with Barclays. Visit our Facebook and Twitter for more information. Terms and conditions apply. Barclays, part of the ABSA family.
The makeshift youth, the slave ship captured.
A happy birthday to you, Pamela Entry of Holy Child School.
Built pyramids, America's first.
Happy 17th birthday to you, Pamela Entry of Holy Child School. Good to be 99.7 and then some.
Astronomers.
Also a happy birthday to you, Madam Gillian Baba Heathcote, General Manager Communications at Stratcom Africa, from the entire staff and management of Stratcom Africa.
Warm bed, we love some warm bread and shelter from the storm.
And I'm going to do this again because it's our guy's birthday. Malik Abbas Dabo with us here in studio. Happy birthday.
Andrew, tell those selfish in ways not to share us out. What's a tree without root? Lion without tooth, a lie without truth. You hear me out? Africa must wake up, the sleeping sons of Jacob. For what tomorrow may bring, may a better day come.
Minutes past 9, this is the Super Morning Show. Song in the background is Africa Must Wake Up by Nas and Damian Marley off that legendary album Distant Relatives. I'm going to take a few of your text messages and then I'll come back to my guests for wrap-up comments. Then I'll open the phone lines. Now, what will happen is that we'll discuss vigilantism before we go. Hey, political party militialism, forgive me, because we are still having that campaign, disband party militias now. Good morning, Daniel and friends. My biggest disappointment. Okay, I've read this one from Ifo Kofintama. Indeed, the next generation should be on the mind of our leaders and not the next elections when coming out with projects and interventions which are sustainable to benefit present and future generations. Well said, Mr. President. Regards to Honorable Nana Samoei Boateng, DCE for Jacob. All right. Emmanuel Tete Mensah sent us a letter from Oyibi near Dodowa. He says, good morning. The President's State of the Nation address touched on vital and relevant issues. Well, if well addressed and tackled, they would achieve the needed results. These laudable ideas could best be achieved within the time frame if the nation makes maximum use of its available mass of unemployed professionals, whose intellectual and professional skills coupled with experience will be a driving force in meeting the aspirations of the nation. One of the possible areas could be engaging professionals in the fields of health and safety as follows: doctors, nurses, and paramedics to set up health posts, clinics, hospitals for workplaces, lorry stations, event centers, major churches, mosques, etc. These are to be managed by the institutions concerned, who will pay salaries of the workers. A lot of interesting ideas from you, Emmanuel Tete. Maybe you should join us one day in studio to discuss a few more of this. Good morning, Daniel. I did not hear much about education, especially on the teacher trainee undertaking national service.
Africa, China, Japan, Afghanistan, Israel.
I thought Honorable is here to tell us what the facts are. Why this academic exercise with many ifs? Please tell us exactly what the issues are and what you're doing to fix it. I believe the previous governments told us all these already, and I remember you had a contrary view. What has changed? Oh, I know. You are in government now.
That's right, you too.
Interesting, but it's 6 minutes to the top of the hour. I want to transition straight to the next point of the conversation, unless my guests have final comments on the city. Okay, none abroad, none across board. We are going to take what the president said about political party militia groups. But we are hearing that there's a fire outbreak at Mokola. So we'll take that quick update now. PRO Ellis Robinson. Ellis Robinson is PRO for the fire service. He's the head of PR at the fire service. Thank you. Head of PR at the fire service, Ellis Robinson, is on the line. Mr. Robinson, what's the situation at Mokola? Hello, Mr. Robinson. Good morning, Mr. Robinson. Good morning, Mr. Robinson.
Hello.
Great. What's the situation at the fire service?
Okay, as I speak to you now, we have 3 fire engines on site. And the fire basically involves a basement at the shopping mall. There's a lot of smoke coming out from the basement. And that is what is impeding us from fighting the fire effectively.
Okay, so the smoke is preventing you from fighting the fire effectively?
Yes.
Has the building been cleared? Has the mall been cleared of people?
Pardon me?
Has the mall been cleared? Are there people still in the mall?
Has the mall been cleared in terms of...
Yeah, I mean, has it been evacuated? Are there still people there?
Yes, the people down there have been evacuated. But like I was saying, there's a lot of smoke emanating from the basement. And it's preventing firemen from, going there to do effective firefighting. But we have asked for a smoke extractor, and they are bringing it so that we can use to extract some of the smoke out of the place so that we can gain access to the place.
When is this smoke extractor expected to arrive?
I'm sure by the next... it's even in.
Okay. How intense is this fire?
I wouldn't say it's intensive. It's rather the smoke that is very, very intensive. I understand the fire started from a shop that deal in hair products, plastic products. So because of the nature of the items in the fire, it's a lot of smoke emanating from the place.
Okay, so it's because of the items that we are having smoke.
Exactly.
What do they know what sparked the initial flame? Have they been able to tell you?
Hello?
Do they know what sparked the flame in that hair product shop?
I'm not getting you clear.
I'm asking, do they know how the fire started in that shop?
No. We don't have the cause of the fire now. It's too early. I need to do some rounds and some assessment before we can come out with all those things.
Have there been any casualties?
No, not so far.
No injured persons, no dead people.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Robinson, do we know how many shops have been destroyed?
I have not been to the basement, so it will be very difficult to give you this information now.
So as of now, no one has entered, at least no fire service person has entered the basement?
No, we are at the entrance of the basement, like I told you earlier on. The smoke is impeding us from getting inside the basement. So at the moment, we are at the entrance of the basement, trying to use some water. And then, like I said, they are bringing a smoke extractor so that they will use it to extract the smoke to let us gain access to the place.
Now, that area is quite a large mall. How many functioning water hydrants do we have there?
How many what?
Functioning water hydrants, fire hydrants, do we have there?
It's very difficult to give you this information now.
But you have enough water to deal with this situation?
Water, we don't have a problem with water. We don't have a problem with water at all.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Ellis Robinson, for joining us. He's the head of PR at the Ghana Fire Service. He just informed us that, in fact, whilst we were speaking, the smoke extractor they need to get the smoke out of the way so they can enter the basement of that mall to fight the fire fight the fire head on, if I can say, has arrived. So we are expecting to see this fire being fought quite quickly by the Ghana National Fire Service. Worrying news you're hearing there. We'll get more details for you in later bulletins here on Joy 99.7 FM and Joy News Channel on Multi TV. I'm coming back, however, to my guests in studio, and I'll begin this leg of the conversation by playing this out.
On 31st January, 3 weeks ago exactly, a by-election was called to elect a replacement for the late Emmanuel Chiramatin Ejaku. May his soul rest in perfect peace. During the course of that morning, some events took place in that constituency which led to an uproar in the country. My first instinct was to let the police do their investigations and then prosecute if they found evidence of criminality. The narration that this was another incident of, quote, normal by-election violence, unquote, caused me to expand my response. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, recent by-elections in Akwatia, Etiwa, Chereponi, Talensi, and Amenfi West had been marked with violence, and some people still have their physical and emotional scars to show for it. I could have sat it out, as some did for Akwatia, Etiwa, Chereponi, Talensi, and MSUS, but I decided that that will not be in the interest of Ghanaian democracy. The time has come to put an end to the phenomenon of politically related violence. The only way in our system to begin to deal with such a situation is through the work of a commission of inquiry. Thankfully, I got 4 responsible Ghanaians of independent spirit who agreed to serve on the commission. I hope the findings and recommendations of the Emile Short Commission will enable us chart a path to ending politically related violence in our country. The events of last Monday in Kumasi, where a meeting of the national and regional executives of the opposition National Democratic Congress was broken up by acts of violence, leading to the tragic death of a citizen, have reinforced the urgent need for us to find that path. I want to use the platform of this message to make a sincere, passionate appeal to the leaders of the 2 main political parties in our country, MPP and NDC, to come together as soon as possible, preferably next week, to agree on appropriate measures to bring an end to this worrying and unacceptable phenomenon of vigilantism in our body politic. Mr. Speaker, I have asked the leadership of the MPP to extend an invitation to the leaders of the NDC for such a meeting. The security services of the country will be on standby to assist this meeting. If voluntary disbandment by the parties is not feasible, then I will initiate legislation in the matter. Vigorous debate and the exchange of ideas should be the true basis of political dialogue and competition in our country, not the activities of party vigilante groups. The Speaker, what was tolerated over the years cannot and must not be accepted anymore. We must not take our peace and security for granted, not for a moment. Our children and grandchildren will not forgive us if we were to compromise our peace and stability. I will not permit that to happen under my watch. Our forebears paid too high a price with their blood and toil to bequeath to us this beautiful nation, and the lives of our citizens are too precious to waste. So, Mr. Speaker, let us come together, shoulder to shoulder, hand in hand, and let us all be guided by the inspirational words of the second stanza of our national anthem. Hail to thy name, O Ghana. To thee we make our solemn bow. Stand fast, steadfast to build together a nation strong in unity. With our gifts of mind and strength of arm, whether night or day, in the midst of storm, in every need, whatever the call may be, to serve thee, Ghana, now and forevermore. Mr. Speaker, we have our challenges, but our nation is in good health.
It's 16 minutes past 9 here on the Super Morning Show. Enjoy 99.7 FM. You just heard President Akufo-Addo speaking at the State of the Nation address yesterday. That's how he ended his submission. I'm going to begin straight with Dr. Christian, Director, Faculty of Academic Affairs and Research, Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping and Training Center. Good morning, Doc. Good to have you here again.
Good morning.
So the president has spoken decisively about this. Are we satisfied from where you sit?
Well, let's not forget that this is part of a long history of the president making stronger and stronger statements with respect to his abhorrence of vigilantism. And I think for it to appear in the State of the Nation address and for him to stretch an olive branch to the NDC to begin a process of negotiation. And I think from where I sit, we should understand what his words mean. This is going to be a long, tedious, back and forth process. First, of establishing trust, the parameters around which the further conversations will revolve and rotate. So this is not about timelines. There are multiple steps that must take place before we get to even saying, yes, now we've identified a set of people who will come sit around the table for the serious negotiation process. But getting to that part that says we have now agreed that we are going to talk openly, transparently, honestly, cannot be done by the two parties. There's too much mistrust. There's too much suspicion. There's too much fear. There's too much uncertainty. And therefore, it is crucial that going forward, we identify an institution or a group of individuals with a proven track record in bringing contending parties around an issue to the negotiating table. This is a long-haul process. But recognizing that we are facing an existential threat and therefore we need to grab the bull by the horns, it's always a useful first step.
Beyond that first step, and assuming that we would get such a body to do a proper mediation between these parties, for instance, a question has been raised of, after disbanding, what next? There have been suggestions that these young men can be drafted into the security agencies, for instance. What's your stance on this?
You see, that is part of the negotiation process. I think we shouldn't rush. We've had 61 years to gradually destroy ourselves using weapons and violence as a political currency. What to do with these boys becomes only one of the multiple facets of themes that we need to negotiate about. Since 1951, the use of political violence as a tool to attain power has been accepted in our society. Until now, these boys have realized that, look, we've been used over time. People have gotten power. They've abused us and misused us. Now we will take the power from them. So the fear is on the side of the politicians and not the boys. But that is only one of the issues that we need to discuss. They are demobilization, the militarization, and reintegration. Where we reintegrate them also becomes another issue. Now, we need to look also at the criminal aspects. Okay? It is not only about the boys. It's about powerful people who establish these groups and use them for different pecuniary and pernicious outcomes. What do we do with with the entrepreneurs of violence. Okay, so we are not only talking about those who actually hold the gun and fire.
Okay.
Or those boys with earrings in their ears and who were beating Ghanaians on the 31st as if they were cattle. No. Those who recruited them, those who funded them, those who provided the ideational support, those who shipped them into a frenzy.
Okay.
And the institutions that failed to play their oversight roles. You see, because this is about generating trust.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. To generate trust for the two parties to start the conversation.
Right.
Means that multiple things will have to be discussed. Now, because there's mistrust, we need a third party.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Kwesi Enin, for joining us.
It's always a pleasure.
Pleasure is ours, as always. Dr. Kwesi Enin is the director at the Faculty of Academic Affairs and Research at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping and Training Center. I'm going to take his sentiment straight to Mr. Kwarteng. Mr. Kwarteng, you are a member of parliament. Yes, and so this issue of party militialism is something that I believe you have confronted before. Do you agree with Dr. Enin when he says that there's a specific issue of mistrust between NDC and MPP that we have to deal with before we can even think about sitting around the table to have a conversation about this?
There's mistrust. I'm not too sure whether it's about the NPP and the NDC. That mistrust, it's always between the party in opposition and the security agencies perceived to be under the control of the ruling party. I mean, that is what really it is. And it always comes from the provision in our laws that, you see, if elections happen and there is violence, the Electoral Commission does not have the competence, it says, to pronounce the election results, the outcome. So you have to go to the courts to establish that the violence affected. And so political parties have always thought that if you don't defend your own on that day and your opponent overpowers you and they get the outcome they want, you may not be successful. The Electoral Commission may well announce and ask you to go to court, and by the time you get a court verdict, things will be over. I mean, there's always, you hear that discussion all the time, and so it's almost to say protect your own turf. Now, I think that, let me call it an excuse. That excuse has been used to perpetuate sometimes wanting violence. That has nothing to even do with protecting your own. It has helped breed a culture of violence that clearly everybody is getting worried about. So, to that narrow point, I think it's always between the party in opposition and actually the security agencies and government, you know, thinking that you abuse state power unfairly to your advantage. If you listen to the president, he spoke in broader terms without restricting it to banning these vigilante groups. And I can understand why, and I think it was good. You know, you need not give them a name. People can still pay tax as people do in respect of land guards. They don't have names really, but you pay them, they go and deliver violence for you. So that discussion should be broadened. Of course, the political parties disbanding these groups will be helpful. And I have always taken that view that we don't need these vigilante groups in order as a country to be able to nurture a sound political culture.
Okay.
So I'm very clear about that.
Okay.
The disbanding would be helpful. The president has given the two political parties a clear signal that sit down and find ways of dealing with the broad issues. And I guess that would definitely include disbanding, because if your opponent says, I am keeping mine, and then your own, even if you as the leader, You wanted to do otherwise. Your own followers are going to tell you. Yes. So the
it begins with
would,
a conversation.
Yes.
Like you say, Malik, you've been quiet the entire show. Let's hear you.
I just wanted to find out from Honorable whether you control the police. You are in government. Do you control the police?
We don't.
So why is it that when you leave office, all of a sudden you feel that those who have come into power control the police?
Well, you will have to look at history. And you see, when in the contest for political power, you want to leave no stone unturned. So, I mean, the fact that you are a good guy doesn't mean the other person would also be a good guy. But indirect,
except that the NDC,
I'm coming indirect.
The NDC also does not trust.
The NDC also reasons like you. When they too are in government, they will tell you that they don't
exactly.
The moment they leave power, all of a sudden they don't trust the police. They think the police
I don't
will
disagree. That is why the conversation is important. That the conversation between the two parties. That let's move together and do this together for Mother Ghana. I think that conversation is important.
And
but
you see, the matter I raise about trust also happens between the political parties and the Electoral Commission. When the political parties are in power, they have no problems with the Electoral Commission. As soon as they leave power, everything the Electoral Commission does is to inure to the benefit of the persons, those in government. It's difficult to understand.
That's why the conversation...
So why is it that when you are in power, you don't have any problems with the Electoral Commission? When you are told that the Electoral Commission is working in your interest, you say no, it is an independent organization.
Malik,
as soon as you leave power, the EC all of a sudden has lost their independence.
Malik, don't look on the political parties as some bad guys in this instance.
No, I'm not
coming.
suggesting
look on them as entities with a problem, and the nation must help the political party solve this problem.
My suggestion to you, Honorable, with the greatest of respect, is that you people, you trump up these claims and you use that as a basis to form these groups.
Fair enough.
There is no sufficient evidence that the police are incapable of providing all of us security in terms of elections. There is no such evidence.
I think it is in our collective interest that we even pursue the line that you have just explained.
Absolutely.
But yes, and that is why the conversation is important.
And I hope that the commitments that we are hearing from the president himself and from the national chairman of the NDC, Ofosu Ampofu, that these groups will be disbanded, that they will not be encouraged or even tolerated or countenanced by the various political parties, that those words will be backed by actions. And I always refer to this. When the president was in Kumasi the last time in 2017 and gave the Asantehene assurance that the government will not tolerate these things, it didn't stop the violence from happening. It didn't stop the seizures of state institutions from happening. I hope, and I believe this is hope that is shared by many Ghanaians, that this time around, with the force that he has spoken, with the best of intentions that he has expressed, with the assurance that he gave to the people's representative, and you are one of them, that this will see the light of day.
Particularly the sort of ultimatum that if they are unable to reach a sort of agreement, we are going to see a legal route being taken. Mame, you agree with Malik?
So can I just comment and just go a little back in time? You know, there's a basic statement that says there's nothing new under the sun.
Of course.
And what is happening on the national level is happening on the international level, where you hear of the culture of mercenaries that have come into the being, where you're talking about the privatization of war, privatization of peace. So people now recruit people to go fight wars for them. It happened in the Iraq War. You've seen it happen even from history in Rome and all of that. And now we're having it on the national level, whereby parties can now go and at least recruit people through enterprises that render these services of giving people militia or train people to help you until it becomes like a private militia. Because that's
what it is.
Yes, because the term mercenary comes from the word fighters for profit. These people fight for money. They don't fight for patriotism or whether it's right or wrong. They are there because of money. Now, if you look back, I think in 2016, there was a whole case about these 3 ex-police officers or army men,
South African
yes, who
officers
had come in to train in people. And when they were interrogated, the information that came out was that they had had records of some of there was this company that was working for the EC. STL, yes, they had information as to what the weaknesses of the people who were within that organization was, their strength, information that they shouldn't have had. It was very strange. So this was information.
Except that those were claims which were not verified.
Yes.
They were just claims by one side.
That's what they are saying now. But they were also saying that in 2012, these same people, the same 3 people were saying that their services were also requested in 2012. And I'm realizing that what the president said in terms of, and I'm to agree with Dr. Aining, that it's about trust. And there's a mistrust issue within political parties in general. And I think it's because of the idea of the way the political system works, that the winner takes or loser takes nothing. And so I would defend. You see, Ghana is taking like this commodity that you go in and you're like, you know what, I'm going to like make sure we fight for it. Like it belongs to a party. So when you become president, or you're in power, you own the country. So I need to defend this territory I have with by any means necessary. It doesn't become about Ghana anymore. It's about these parties, 2 companies, or people bidding. Or excuse me to say, like, layman terms, 2 men fighting for a woman. You see, so whatever we would do to get this, and when we get it, we'll protect it with everything. Ghana doesn't belong to the NDC or the MPP, and that's what I want Ghanaians to understand, and to put more pressure on these parties, because they can always go back and solicit it. I mean, who are all the key positions in the police commission? Who appoints them? The IGP is appointed by...
The IGP is appointed by the president, and then the IGP goes ahead to make the other appointments.
Well, think about that then. So now we can go and have a discussion and say, hey, listen, we'll deal with our issue. But then how do I trust, if you are in power, that even the police that you have there are going to work? And I don't know if you get the point I'm making.
Mami, I want you to continue talking.
Yes.
But let me just open my phone line. 0302-216-541. 0244-340-437. Don't forget what you were saying. We'll continue. 0302-216-541. 0244-340-437. Please call, Mami.
Yes, I was preaching. I mean, for me, I think that it's so deep that it's not so simplistic as going to have a meeting and discuss. Because at the end of the day, how can the opposition trust? And that has nothing to do with MPP or NDC. Even NDC was in power. How do I trust now? Because the people who even are supposed to defend the security of this nation are appointed by you. So I can go and say, oh, I'll deal with my militiamen.
The appointment is not stricter sensu appointed by because these are police officers who have served for many of them for decades, even before this person comes to power.
They don't have political affiliation?
They may have political affiliation, and I take the position that I do not believe that by merely being MPP or NDC, a policeman is incapable of executing his functions. I don't believe
you see,
there are Democrats and
Malik, I'm bringing in John from Accra to join this conversation. But you see, the IGP will do his work, but it only becomes a question when NDC members are beaten by MPP people. Then the question is raised. So then the NDC would feel that we need to militarize because we can't trust him in that moment.
Exactly.
It is only when your choice has to be made that it becomes a question. However, I will tell you what the Interior Minister told me when I asked him this very question. Paul from Ho is on the line. Good morning, Paul. Unfortunately, we lost John from Accra. Please call back. Paul from Ho, good morning.
Hello?
Yes, Paul, let's hear you.
Good morning. I'm good.
Okay, let's hear you, Paul.
Yeah. Listening to the president yesterday, it's funny. The president is just being disingenuous. I mean, why should he instruct his party to go meet NDC to solve the vigilante problem as though it is not a problem? The president, for crying out loud, is the commander-in-chief of the invisible and the data forces. So
that would be a very unfair statement to make that he's a commander-in-chief of a certain group.
Joy FM.
Fact according to who? You?
To president, speak the truth to power. You are shielding this government too much. You're making this president look feel so too comfortable. He is a problem of all the happenings in the country. So who should solve those problems?
Okay,
so
Paul.
You're part of the problem.
Paul, thank you very much for calling us. Samuel is on the line from Greater Estates. Good morning, Samuel. Samuel, please reduce the volume on your radio sets. We are getting some feedback.
Hello.
Hi. Reduce the volume on your radio set, Samuel, please. We are getting some very bad feedback on this end.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can always hear you, but have you reduced the volume?
My radio is actually off.
Thank you very much. Let's go ahead.
Okay. I think that I will agree with Dr. Eni because, you see, there's a great mistrust between these two political parties, and it doesn't matter really who is in power. the fact that I've been thinking really deeply about this whole thing of vigilantism and the police and our security services. For instance, we should ask ourselves, who actually put the IGP in office? Does the IGP vote? The Chief of Defense Staff? Is it by political appointment? Or they grow or go through the ranks to become a Chief of Defense Staff? And all the other security services that we have. I think that these boys who become vigilantes for these parties are party soldiers who actually are disgruntled or are not happy about how they're treated and all of that. And most of them, I ask myself all the time, when a party is in power, you find all these, what you call the national security boys, and, you know, you see them all over the place.
Okay.
Now, when a party leaves power, where do those boys go? Because when another government comes or when another party takes over, you see different sets of national security boys parading all over the place.
Samuel, very interesting questions you've raised. I'll allow those questions, heavy questions, to hang in our thoughts. Thomas from Koforidua is on the line. Good morning, Thomas.
Good morning, Mr. Dazi.
Yes, sir. Let's hear you.
I just want to agree with Dr. Enin. The mistrust. Look, the politicians don't trust each other. But when they come on your stations, they pretend as saying, so nothing is happening. When the president was in opposition then, which people were guiding him? Was it the national police? He has his own people who were guiding him. And when he came to power, is he not using them? Look at those people who are guiding Plaster House. When it came to Parliament, Parliament talked about it. They said, no, they are only guiding Plaster House as presidential guards. You know, the same MPP vigilante groups. So now NDC will disband, but they've seen there are other people in government. Do you think that they will agree? Let's stop those nice talks. And it is not only the politicians that they do other work. These boys, it's a group like Dr. Enin is saying. So let's be very, very mindful. Let's deal with the root problem.
Okay. Thank you very much, Thomas, for calling us from Koforidua. I'm going to take the last caller, Jawini from Kumasi. Did I say your name well, Jawini?
Jawini, yes.
Okay. Please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I'm calling from Kumasi. In fact, we do not make a respect of the party of this party militia. The laws are already there, okay. For example, those who went and measure out this violence against the police, they are known. Let the police arrest them, prosecute them, and it goes on. The man who did the shooting at the Assembly Party office, they should fish him out and prosecute him. That is the only way out. How can parties negotiate? If there's no law in place, then it's a different matter. But once there's a law, the law must be made to work. Simply, and everybody will be peaceful.
That was Jawini from Kumasi, ending the phone-in segment. Thanks to all of you for calling. I'm coming back to the studio for final comments from Mami and Mr. Kwating on, to end the conversation. Yes, Mr. Kwete is gone. He's not on the line anymore. So let me begin with you, Kweko Kwating. Please do this for me in 30 seconds.
Okay, I'll try.
Do your best.
I thank you for the opportunity to have this discussion. You remember, Mami said something. It's unfortunate my good friend Fifi is gone, but Mami said something that politicians, we have not been true to the issues, and that depending on whether you're in government or opposition, your tune is different. I think it is something we politicians should listen to and begin to debate alternatives. I think government strategies in respect of industrialization, in respect of creating a good macro economy and stabilizing the city are right. But as a government, we are open to the discussion of alternatives. This rhetoric about it's politics and they said they can do it, and well, it's all good, and I think it's fair to the opposition that when I was in government and the city was falling, you said I was incompetent, so you too are incompetent, and It's fair to expect that of the opposition, but that does not solve the problem. I think government strategies for dealing with these problems are good, and we should begin to, and the media have a responsibility in this, we should begin to extract clear alternatives so that the people of this country will make a decision based on which alternative they think it's helpful.
Okay.
That's what I would say in conclusion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kwarteng. Mame Awinado, please.
I just want to end and say there's a difference between economic growth and economic development. I think we get excited when we see the numbers, but we need to understand that we want to see the quality of life changed. That the man who could not afford a 3-square meal once upon a time can now. And if we push for that, instead of having so many nice buildings, but we push more to see development, lives change, the quality of life, healthcare change in our country, I think we'll go a long way. And we should no longer see in NDC, NPP, but we should begin to look at Ghana as Ghanaians. Every Ghanaian begin to take responsibility for this country and say that it's no longer about the party, but it's about Ghana. And if we put Ghana first, I think that we'll go a long way. So thank you.
It's our Ghana. It's our collective responsibility. This is the Super Morning Show on Joy 99.7 FM. My name is Daniel Daze. We're going to take these important messages. When we come back, we'll be speaking with Amy Apia Frimpong from the National Theatre of Ghana. A lot more coming up. Stay with us. We'll be right back.